All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Suit Show. See, it's amazing that you could take out time out of your time to listen, and whatever it is you're doing, I don't want to go on trying to decipher whatever it is you're doing at the moment as you listen, but as you listen, thank you. As we would say when we want to give special number in church, you say, as you listen, remain blessed. So as you listen, remain blessed. But before we get into it, be sure to follow, leave a 5-star rating, subscribe as you would YouTube, turn on notifications so that you get alerted each time a new episode drops. Wherever you get your podcast from, you're gonna get alerted. All right, and share, leave us a rating so that the algorithm pushes it. All these things are ways for the word that we are saying here to be spread to more than just you and me and the community we have, so that more people can join our community and we can keep growing from there. All right. I'm going to go over the 411 at the end of the episode, but this is just like the introductory kind of thing to fix it at the back of your mind. So anyway, I'm just going on and on about you know what to do. Yeah. Thank you very much. And so this episode was particularly worded like this to pique your curiosity. Did it pique your curiosity? I hope it did. If it did not, then I would have to work on my titling. But anyway, before I go into the topic, I want to tell you guys how I come up with episode titles and names for things. The way I come up with names for things is I hate brainstorming for names for things. I brainstorm for other things. I could brainstorm for ideas for, say, marketing, content ideas, design, things like that. When I'm trying to design a flyer for a podcast episode, I could think up a bunch of ideas for the fonts, the images, and every other thing. Yeah. But when it comes to naming things like the actual name of the episodes, I do not brainstorm. The reason when I brainstorm, and I'm not saying brainstorming is bad, don't get me wrong. For me, when I do it, it feels forced, and so I don't brainstorm. I just allow the names flow. That's not to say I haven't brainstormed in the past. I definitely have. Some of the episodes are worded. I can't remember the particular ones, but there's some episodes that are worded in a specific way that maybe when I look back at it, I'll say, "Oh yeah, I definitely sat on this one." And if you go back to the previous episodes, you see, for example, indecisiveness. After indecisiveness, I put like 4 dots or 3 dots. That was I was a teenager, and I was like indecisiveness dot dot dot. For me, those dots just created suspense or something, like something was coming after, and what was coming after was a discussion. But anyway, that's by the way. In unrelated news, I traveled to Togo, so this episode is after my trip to Togo. I went to get my certificate from school. Yeah, I have a degree in computer science, and my certificate is from a school in Togo. Togo is such a beautiful country. It's a shame that we don't talk about African countries as much. We don't talk about the beauty in African countries as much as we talk about the beauty in European and Western countries. But Togo is a really beautiful place. I'd absolutely love to go back there when I have the time and when I have the resources to go again. I'll also encourage you visit African countries. African countries are beautiful beyond Zanzibar that everybody goes to take aesthetic photos and everything. Visit some other African countries that are, just visit other African countries as long as it's safe. Yeah, everybody has to be safe and everything. But anyway, like I said, this particular episode was worded to kind of pique your curiosity. If it did not, I probably have to do better wording my episodes or allow the stream to flow harder so that the episode. Well, anyway, I want to talk about Tales by Moonlight, and it's contextual. And there are two particular things I want to talk about. literally Tales by Moonlight. There was a show called Tales by Moonlight that happened in the evenings. It was an evening programs when my parents were younger, or our parents were younger, and it would air on, I think, NTA channel 2 channel. I can't remember, but I think NTA it was, and it would be all these folklores, fables, tales. A very popular one is the tortoise and the hare. The slow and steady wins the race story. Another one I can think of very well was when uh, the king wanted to give his daughter's hand in marriage, and he said everyone in the animal kingdom was gonna come to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. But in order for them to do it, they had to pass one task. They had to eat spicy food and not have any reaction. And so the reaction he was looking for wasn't really facial or anything. They didn't give us an image of a facial reaction. What reaction was he looking for? Sucking air through your teeth. That was, if you did that, you're disqualified. And so every animal went before the tortoise. The tortoise looked and said, this thing can't walk, oh. No go walk, oh. That kind of thing. And so when it got to his turn, there was a way he did his thing, and it was in pidgin. The story was told in pidgin, and he said, king say make we no do, una they do, me I no do. Then he would sigh, and he kept on doing it each time he needed to take a break from the spice, and he finished. So basically he was just on telling us about the tortoise's wisdom or something. There are stories like that, a lot of stories. I know many of you can think of stories that he told you. Some of them were not even as fun. Some of them were frightening. I don't want to get into the frightening ones. I don't want to scare myself or scare other people, but they were frightening stories as well. But the crux of my conversation isn't just those folklores and fables. Even look at let's say mythology. Look at legends. In America, they have the Sasquatch, they have the Yeti, they have what's the name of that dude? The Loch Ness monster. Loch Ness monster I think is not American. I don't know where it is, but all these things. Some people even say aliens are not real. I don't. I'm not part of that conversation. Are they real? Probably. Are they not real? Probably. I don't really know. Have I seen one? Absolutely not. But if they are real, but chances are they are real. Now I don't want to get into the alien conversation anyway. But like I said, the crux of my conversation isn't just about all of that. The reason why this episode is particularly particular to me is because I had a conversation with my little sister. She's in her final year of secondary school, and she was telling me of a conversation she had with a roommate in the hostel, and they were talking about everyone there was talking about the Bible. And often we will have in my house with my siblings, we would sit down and we'll talk about the Bible. They'll ask me questions, and from the wealth of knowledge that I have gotten from my pastor and from every other person that has instructed me or told me concerning the Bible, pastors alike and friends alike, pastors and friends alike, I should have said, I'll tell them the answers. I'll give them answers to some of the questions that they pose, philosophical, logical answers to some of the questions, scientific answers to some of the questions that they have. And so she brought up the conversation that she had with a roommate, and the person said that the Bible is just a bunch of stories. It's just a bunch of fables, to put it more professionally. I, I should say, it's just a bunch of stories that people thousands of years ago in the Middle East thought, how can we convince the entire world? How can we convince the entire world that we exist? Let's just make up a bunch of stories and I don't know, push it so crazily and so fast that a lot of people believe, and develop a cult like following for a historical figure, and that's it, you know. And it's particularly, forgive me for saying this repeatedly, but it's particularly particular to me because at the crux of many of the things we see today on media is the Christian faith. Take a look at the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. I mean, both sides are being affected badly. You know what is badly? Badly. Israelis say the Palestinians are dwelling in lands that belong to them, promised by God. Palestinians, I don't know what their case is, but they are living in a land that they have a right to live in, apparently, your fundamental human rights. Now, the paramilitary terrorist group attacks Israel first, and Israel strikes back, and now it's a pissing contest between militaries, and there are people that are suffering. Moms, children, women are at the forefront of the collateral damage. A lot of people are losing their lives, but these people just want to keep on pissing. It's a pissing contest for them. Who's going to surrender first? Would hold a ceasefire? Oops, no, gotcha, psych, no ceasefire, and things like that. And you hear people on the news say it's ridiculous for Israel to come out and say this is a land promised to them by God. What do you mean by God? Is it the God of your Bible, the God who commanded genocide, the God who commanded all sorts of bad and evil things to befall the enemies of Israel? People say all these things, and some people in defense of the Bible can fall into the trap of saying, oh, these things are stories, not about us, but written for us. And then someone will make a case and say, okay, if the Old Testament are stories, and they say the Old Testament predicts the New Testament, that means the New Testament is just refined stories. And the problem with this position that the Bible is full of stories or are just made up, it's a figment of the imagination of Middle Eastern people or the Middle Eastern guys, that whatever you think or whatever position you hold on this particular subject, it's wrong, because in doing so you are blatantly choosing, is what I will call willful ignorance. You are willfully ignoring the historical facts. Yes, there was a man. He was born of a virgin. It doesn't make any sense. The Immaculate Conception. It doesn't how. What do you mean that Mary did not? Mary wasn't even married to Joseph. That means she must have slept with someone else. Oh no, she did not. She was born of God. That does not make any sense. Yes, because many times the Bible doesn't have to make sense to you. It's illogical. But that does not mean that God in his omniscience is illogical. The air that we breathe, the scientists talk about the earth being in the Goldilocks zone. It just shows the presence of a higher intelligence. How do you know that the earth has to be in this position? A degree to the west, a degree to the north, a degree to the south, a degree to the east. The earth could either be hotter or colder, and would all die. So it shows the presence. So to blatantly ignore that and to say, oh, it's just a bunch of stories, it's terrible. It's terrible. There are historical facts. There are scientific backings to show that this isn't just a bunch of stories cooked up by some uneducated Middle Eastern men to develop a cult-like following. Over 2.2 billion people believe this thing. You can say, oh, maybe it's mass hysteria or mass, let's say, illusion. It really can't be. And if you wanted to push a fable back in the day, you wouldn't do it with women. Women were regarded as second class citizens. And if you paid attention to the Bible, you see that the Bible did not regard women as second class citizens. Women, men, even children are all equal in the eyes of God. When the children came up to Jesus and the disciples were like, "Yo, shoo, shoo, you dirty little ones, shoo with your grimy, slimy hands." Jesus was like, "Yo, hold up. You have to be like these guys. If you're not like these guys, you can't enter the kingdom of God." Now, Jesus was talking about being childlike, not childish. Yeah, that's a conversation for another day. It's like, you have to be like these ones. You have to be open, vulnerable, lay everything before me. You need to be willing to accept the illogical. You need to be willing to let go of your ego, let go of your incessant need for logical explanation all the time. You need to let go. See the world with a childlike imagination, childlike admiration. You just need to look at it with a childlike sense and just open yourself up to the possibility that there is more to life than your logical constraints. But then you say, "Oh, it's a bunch of stories." No, it really isn't. It really, really isn't. And this episode is not even. I'm not even trying to go into the nitty gritty of things. I'm just trying to make a case for the Bible not being a bunch of fables. I'm going to talk, by the grace of God, I'm going to talk extensively on the tenet of our faith being the resurrection of Jesus. Was it fact? Was it fable? And it's a series that's going to be on salvation. So, by the grace of God, next month we're going to have the salvation series, and we have 5 Tuesdays. So we're going to have 5 episodes, so 5 postings in the month of April by the grace of God. So you guys want to stick around. I was up designing the flyer, so you're going to have salvation, fact or fable. We're going to talk about the miracle of salvation. We're going to talk about the gifts and the works of salvation. We're going to talk about salvation in relation to sin and forgiveness. And then we're going to talk about the all important one, the afterlife, which everybody is bothered about. Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Catholicism, nihilism, hedonism, everything and everyone has a conversation about the afterlife. And we're going to talk about it. But first of all, you need to understand and recognize the Bible isn't just a bunch of made up stories. You believe the words of Socrates, you believe the words of Aristotle, Plato, uh, Euclid, Pythagoras, Archimedes, you believe Al-Khwarizmi, believe all these people because there are seemingly historical evidences, but you do not believe Jesus. You do not believe the Bible, even though the Bible is the most accurate literature of antiquity. That's silly. Come on, that's silly. But this is where I'm gonna end this episode. Yeah, this is just me talking about how silly it is to hold the view that the Bible is a bunch of fables. Follow us on Instagram. All the links are down below. There's a comment section. Please let me know what your thoughts. Different view, and you want to argue it, or not argue per se, but debate it. Please, the comment section is open. I would love to hear your thoughts. And thank you for listening and have a lovely one. Toodles.